Okay, so you that's not required, but you can do one thing. Just show that data which you got from the form in a console. That's
Console,
also
yeah, in console I did that.
that is also fine.
Okay, okay. So for now with static data, I created variable with product is my interface, and I created the array of it. I created 4 items in it. So now in the product list, actually from product list we need to navigate to each product. That is what the assignment says. When I click on view detail, it should navigate to product. I mean product with ID, right? So I created product. So in this also I just added 3 properties, and I just added the details. That is what showing here, and I created the view detail link. So in the view detail link I added the router link and the product, and I'm passing the product ID of it. That I handled through parameter of this. Next, in production list, so I'm not sure how can I get the data and how can I loop based on the ID. So the same array I added here. Usually if we have API, we'll call it one more time, that API, by passing the input ID, right? That's what I understood. So I created again one more with the 2 more properties as description and IMS source. And in the ng on init, I am subscribing the params, and I am passing this param to the product list by using the find. So when I did last week, I was able to console log, but I was unable to assign the find one to other variable. But today I'm unable to console log also. So I'm not sure, how to do it, or am I missing something?
First of all, you should not keep the data in this component.
Okay.
This should be added in a service.
Okay.
And in that service, you can create a method saying get record, get first record, and that will do the find on the data and return you the record by the ID or whatever you're looking for.
Yes. So usually in product will call one API, which will return just product list. In
so
the
API is going to be API is going to be implemented in the service.
Okay.
Yes or no?
Yes.
So we should keep a service to hardcode the data also, so that the same data can be used in 2 different locations.
Okay, got it. Got it. I'll change accordingly. So will the same find method will work in service? If that is the case, it should work here also, right? But why it is not working? Can you please help me?
So you're writing ID is equal to a.id is equal to params.
Yes.
What is params?
Param, which I am getting it. So here I added it as
what
ID.
is the type of params? What is the type of params?
Okay. It is int.
No.
String.
How do you receive params? No.
Through router link.
Yes, but you receive parameters as an object. In that object, you will have one parameter in it, which is going to be ID. That's the key. And you have to pick that key and receive the data. So you have to write params.id, because params is never a single item. It's an object which will return you multiple items.
Okay. Let me save it. Okay. Okay, I'm getting it. So I should get only one item. So maybe
So that's only the one
I can
item.
assign.
Wait.
I can ask. Okay. No, I'm getting one item only. No, you are right. I'm getting one item only. So instead of console log, can I assign it to details?
Yes.
And do it? Yes, right? Okay. Details, I can make it as array or any. Okay. So this product details I need to use here. Maybe I'm using the same.
Why are you writing details in the loop?
Because my intention is to have only one. If I see here, I'll get 4, right? So when I do this product list will store only one.
So product list will be 4. The details will be only 1.
So that is the reason I'm using details here. I want to display only one.
So why did you write the loop over here in the details then? Let product or product details. What is the use of that?
So for now it's not required. I just simply have product details.
Wait. The code will not work now. So if you run this code, it will not work.
Okay. I'll get only one item, so it loop over only one time.
No, it's an object. One single object will not loop.
Okay.
So it's not magical that it will automatically change to something. You have to make proper understanding of what type of data you're passing from one property to the other property, then only it will work. So if you're writing product list, from the product list, you want to get only one item. So that will be returned and your product list will be one single item. It's not an array of one single item. It's one single item. So in the template, you will receive one single item. So you cannot loop on that.
Okay. Got it. The structural data type. So I think I can write like this.
Yep. Product is not there now, so you have to remove product.
Yes.
Change it product details.
I think I removed it. Maybe not.
Go back to the template. No, go back to the template. See, you have product
details.
Next line.
Okay, thank you.
So what is your product details now? See, what is the error?
Name.
It's undefined reading property, so it's not able to find this property. Okay, so go back to the code. On this on this tr, write a condition, write ng if. Okay, and write product list, product details in it. Now run the code. What happened?
I think.
Please refresh again. No, please refresh again.
Let me come back to
product. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm able to log, but
yeah, you got one single product.
But here also I'm unable to bind it. Actually, this I tried. Logging was done, but not sure how I did. But here it. Okay.
Okay, so in this, delete this product details which you have written, line number 13. And now run the code again.
I think instead of this console log, let me do this. See, now it says undefined.
Okay, go back to the code. So
is it any of array? No, right? Anything
okay.
it will take, right?
Wait. So in the previous one you're writing double equal to, and this one you're writing triple equal to. So it does a type check. So your parameter when you're receiving it, it's always received as a string.
Okay, got
So
it.
write triple equal to
Triple or double?
write triple.
Now it is triple. I removed double.
Yeah, now write
I made it.
number, n capital number, write brackets. Yeah, wrap this in brackets.
Yes, now it's coming. Super.
Okay.
Okay. I have one more doubt is I created the db.json file. So, I mean, I
Now
was
you
able,
have to, no. I cannot do it now because it's blocking the complete session. So you have to fix it now by yourself. And at the last
no,
of the session,
I'll
you have
fix
to.
it. I'll
No,
fix it.
now
Just,
I cannot. Now I cannot help you right now because it's
okay.
blocking the whole session.
Sure, sure. Then we can connect post the call, post the
Yeah.
session. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Cool, guys. Let's start with a new topic. We have to start with the validations. So we have the validation topic, which is lift. That is this one, where we have to implement validations in our form and see how they are, like how to even create custom validations. So the topic for today will be form validations, type of form validations, inbuilt validations we have, form control status, form validation methods, and custom CSS. If you want to add some CSS classes on form validation, how will you implement that? And custom validations for template driven forms and reactive forms. So it's not mentioned over here, but we'll cover the reactive forms custom validation too. So we're going to cover how to implement form validations in template driven and reactive forms and create our own custom validation too. So what is form validation? So form validation is very simple. Whenever you type in something in a form, you have to show the status of it. Is it correct or not? So this validation which you do, this is just for verifying that the basic information is correct. Let's say you're supposed to type in a PIN code. And in India, we have a series of PIN codes which are all already supported. So like in Delhi, the PIN code will always start from 11. If you're in Karnataka, your PIN code will start with 56. I think for Mumbai, it's 40. So these are known PIN codes or series of PIN codes which are supported. So if you want to validate that, okay, if Parveen is signing up and Parveen is typing in PIN code as ABC1234, that's an invalid PIN code. Okay, you're signing it up in a form and your email address is not correct. So you're just writing Parveen.com and that's not correct. So you have to do basic validations. Now, why do we do these? Because otherwise, these validations have to be done on the server side. And doing any validation on the server side, it's a lengthy task because first of all, your request will go to the server will validate that and respond back to the user that, hey, your PIN code is not correct, your email address is not correct. So we don't want that to happen. Why? Because it takes time and it also takes resources. So form validation, what kind of resource will it take from the company? Yes, it takes, because you are running a server. So servers are not free, they cost you money. So if there are like 50,000 people who are signing a form and there is a high chance that every form submission will fail, there will be always at least one validation in every request. So what you have to do is just to handle those requests, you have to add additional servers so that you can handle the load of all these validation requests coming to the server. And even if one server costs you $5 a month, adding more resources will cost you much. And nobody likes to pay for something which will cost them unnecessarily. So we do validations on the client side, on the Angular code. So over here, we'll just check that, okay, are you filling the right format? Are you filling in the right information based on some logic? And then give it to the server. Now the server will also do the same validations, but the reason to do the validations to the server also is maybe somebody has stopped the JavaScript code. Maybe they have forcefully sent the form to the server by using some tools like Postman for directly sending the API request to the server. So never say that you need only front-end validations on Angular. You also need validations on your server, and they complement each other. Okay, so we'll see how these are implemented in different forms. So you have your server-side validation and client-side validation, which has to be implemented. Now, this is the flow that you submit the data to the server. Server will send you back that, okay, the data is valid or the data is not valid, and it will return you error. If this data is valid, it will submit the data and send you that, okay, yes, I have received your request, or I have created your account, and all good. Now, to implement front-end validation, the Angular's form have inbuilt validators which we can use, and they are good for common use cases which you will face day to day. So like min-max, like you want to get a range that a particular number has to be minimum this and maximum should be like this. So some websites have a age limit so that they can be only accessed by a particular age of people. So like I'm creating a banking website, and I don't want people who are lesser than 18 should create a bank account in my, or even submit a form to create a bank account. So in that case, I can set a minimum year that, okay, in this time right now it's 2022. So anyone who is less than 2005 or 2004 should not be able to create an account. Okay, so I can also set a max, like you are creating a form where people can apply for a loan, but if their age calculates more than 65, they cannot be, because that's a very common retirement age in different countries. And I don't want to, maybe I don't want, or the bank doesn't want to give a loan to a person who is retired. So you can add these kind of checks. There is a field for your information, like to provide your email address. So you can check like, okay, if the email address is required and it's not been filled in, you can show an error. There is a required true. Required true is used for checkboxes. Like if you have a checkbox to check your credit score. So I'm like, when you apply for a loan, you have to get your credit score checked, but that requires some kind of a permission from the user also. So it cannot be that bank can do it by themselves. So you provide a consent. So if you need to provide a consent, you will say, okay, there is a checkbox, and it will say something like, I allow the bank to check my credit score. So we will have required true in that case. So that will always verify that the checkbox has been set to true or not. Then you have email validation. So email validation is inbuilt into Angular, where it checks that, okay, email format is correct. It's not very reliable, what I feel is. So there is another one which is called as pattern validation. So we'll use the pattern validations to optimize this email check which we need. So I will show you the error with this once we start with the codes hands-on. Then you have min length, max length. Like when you submit a form, there are forms which will ask you that provide your password, and a lot of applications always recommend you to have password up to 8 characters. In that case, it can give you a message that, okay, you have not typed in 8 characters and the password length is not enough. And sometimes you also have to add a check that password should not be more than 32 characters. It depends on. So in that case, you can set a max length also. So the max length will stop the user to fill in more than the specified length of characters in the input control. So all of these can be used in any of the forms, reactive or template. And I will start with template driven forms to implement these validations and start showing some error messages. So let's create a form where a user can apply for a loan. So I've been taking the example of a loan. So I think that would be much related over here. So I'm in the project. So I will create a new component. So we'll say ng generate component. In the components folder, we'll create apply loan form component. Okay. All right. So this is the component over here, which is created. Now we have to first basically create our structure. So this is a template driven form. So we'll create the template structure over here. I need a div tag. In this div tag, I will create a p tag. Guys, just give me a minute. Okay, so let's say I now have to create a label in it. Okay, so we'll create a label and we'll create an input box in it. Okay, so this is one. So what controls I would need in it? So I will say I will need a first name. The controls I would need is first name, last name, email address. Then we'll have a tax identification. So that's our PAN card in India. Okay, and I need another checkbox that will be for consent to check credit score. Okay, so these are the things which are required for initially starting a loan application. So just simple controls. We can also have age over here. So I should have age, and we can also have any other type of control we can add. So we can add a phone number.
Password.
Also.
Password.
Yeah, password is good, and a phone number also. A mobile phone number. That's good. Okay, so these are the controls which we need. So let's start creating them. So first I've created for the first name. So in this one, I have to add ng model. So I have to say I need support for ng model in this. And it's going to be equal to my control over here. So I will write form equal to any right now and say object. I will create the interface later, but yeah, right now I'll just say form dot first name. Now on this, I have to create a name. I'll write first name, and we'll also create a template variable with the same name which I'm using. So that will be first name equal to ng model like this. Okay, so this is one single control. We'll create another control like this. So we need 7 or 8 controls like this. Okay, so let's fill the details now for them. So this will be last name, then it would be email, oh sorry, this is going to be last name over here, email, add email, then you have password, okay, then we need mobile number, then you need age, then is tax ID, and the consent for credit card. So the consent would, the credit score will be type check box. Okay, and all the other ones are going to be type as text. So say type text. So although type text is by default for every control, just need to add this, so it should be there. Okay, so the form HTML is created. Simple. Now let's try this. Is it working correctly or not? So let's use this Edureka apply loan component somewhere on the page. So we'll use this on the screen which we have for let's create a new screen then. We don't have a screen can use. Okay, so it's called as apply loan over here, and we'll create a route for the screen first. So we'll go to app routing. We'll say apply loan. Okay, and this will load the component that will be this one. Okay, so one issue which I think happened is both the components have the same name. So I'll just call this as apply loan form component. Okay. Now in this, I will add this over here. Okay, once again, let's start the project. Okay, why is this giving so many errors? Oh yeah. Okay, now it's working fine. So let's run this code and check on our browser. Does it works? Yep, the page loads over here. Okay, so the controls values are not filled in. We'll fill them. That's going to be fine. So let's fill these values. This one is still not correct. Check cred. Okay, and at the last, we need a submit button to submit this form. So create button. Okay, and type of this is going to be submit. And we need a form also for wrapping this up. So we'll create a form tag over here. And on this form tag, we'll write ng submit. We'll create a method on it, which will be apply load. Okay, and we'll create a method over here for applying or sending the request, and we'll name this form. So we'll write a name for this. That will be apply loan form is equal to ng form, like this. Okay, so that's now our complete form which we need. So everything looks fine. All right, so now when I submit this form, I will get the complete data over here. So I can write this dot form and see its information. So right now, if I click on it, it returns an empty object over here. Now, there is one more thing which we need to check on this. So when I say apply form or apply loan over here, I have implemented the method over here. So now on this form, there is a way of getting the state of it. So we need to know what is the current state of the form. Is it valid or invalid? Okay, so for that, we have to use this template variable. So this template variable is right now accessible in the template only. It's not accessible in the TS code. But what I can do is I can pass this template variable in the function over here. Okay, and I will receive it over here. So I will call it as apply loan form, and the type of this is going to be form. Okay, from the Angular form, it's going to receive the form over here. Now let's print the value. What does this apply loan form provides me? So write console, go back to the browser, refresh, and submit it again. And now we have received a ng form over here. And what do we get in this ng form? So we need to know the status of it. So how do we know that status? We'll go to the form. And on this form, we get a field, a property over here, which says it's a valid form right now. So right now, why it is valid is because the form has no validations implemented on it. So if there is no validation, the Angular code assumes that the form is already valid. There is no checks required on it. Okay, so what we can do is we can use this to control the behavior of the form. Now let's add a validation on it. So if you're applying for a loan, you need the first name. So I'll say required. So I'll just add a key over here, attribute over here, sorry, as required. And now let's go to the form and do the same, submit again. And we have a status over here which says invalid. So the moment you add validations into it, the status will be controlled by the validation rules. So now let's do one thing. Let's say ABC and submit. Now if you check the status, it's going to be valid. Why? Because the only control here was first name, which is required in the validation. Now it works perfectly fine. So that's good. So now the status has changed, and this form can be submitted successfully. So one thing would be, like, if the form is not valid, I can still submit it. So that should be controlled. The form should be only submitted when the status of the form is true or in a valid state. So what do we do is, we create a method in our code over here, and we write it as is form valid. Okay, just a method over here, and on this we are going to pass in the form, and what it does is it just checks that is the form valid or not. So it's right, it checks that I think it would be better if you do it in the template only. So let me show you directly in the template how we can do this. So because this is the template variable, so that is apply loan form, that is a template variable over here. So I can just scroll down on the button. I can write a property over here which is disabled, and again assign it to apply loan form dot form dot status equal to invalid. So if the form status is equal to invalid, disable the button. Okay, simple check. So on the form name, so then this is the name of the form that's over here, which is ng form. On that I get a property called as form, and that has a property and it has as status. There is only two status values, valid and invalid. So I'll just write invalid. If the value is invalid, then disable this button so that the user cannot submit this form. Okay, so go back to the browser and you can see the button over here is in a gray form over here, so I cannot click on it. But when I type in over here something, it becomes valid, the form becomes valid, and I can submit this now. So you can see it prints out console messages. But if I remove this text, it changes its color to be disabled, and now I cannot click on it. So this is the first thing which you have to implement in your form, that if the form is not valid, it should not submit that. Okay, so I will send you this code in GitHub. Please try this out and then we'll continue. I'll give you 5 minutes for this and set up this form, and then we'll continue in adding the further validations into this. Guys, any questions?
I think you said you'll cover that why we use hash for the input name. Why do we need name?
So
I
that's
mean,
what
in the
I
input
showed you
control.
here.
Yeah.
So the name is required to access that control. So this is a variable. So when you need to create, like in your TS code, if you create a variable, you just write a public variable in the class. So the same thing is done over here. So this is a variable which you are creating.
Okay. So for each control also the same thing. So for each control also we are creating the variable.
Yes. So
Then
we'll come to that.
why do we require name?
Okay. Okay. So are you clear with the form?
Yes.
Okay. So wait now. First implement the form
Okay.
and disable the button. So I'll show you why each control also needs it.
Sure. Got it.
Okay. Any questions on any of the things? Is this form working on your system? So is it getting disabled if you remove the value and gets enabled when you add the value like this? Okay, I think the code is working for everyone. Now, the next step would be adding the further validations on it. So the last name is also required. Yes. Is the email address required? Yes. So we'll say required, and we'll change the attribute over here from text to email, and we'll also add a email over here, attribute over here, so that we know that this is a email validation which we have to implement. Okay, is the password required? Yes, we'll say password. And is it required? Yes. And do we need a minimum length on it? Yes, I need a minimum length of 8 characters for the password. So I'll write min length, and it should be at least 8 characters in length. Do we need a mobile number? Yes, it's also required. And what is a mobile number? Like, what is the format? It has to be minimum 10 characters and maximum 10 characters. Okay, so write so it should be maximum 10 and minimum 10 characters in length. That's the size of a mobile phone number. Age, yes, age is required. We'll say this is required, and we can have a max or min on it. So the minimum age which we need is going to be 18. For the tax ID, yes, I need a tax ID, so that is also required control. And credit check, yes, it has to be required with the required true flag in it. Okay, so you can just write required over here, and that will work. Okay, so this is the whole form validation which we want to implement. Now let's run this and see what is the status of the form. So right now I cannot submit this form because it's disabled, and I have to fill in all the values so that I can submit this form and check the data in it. So let's write like this. And now I can submit this. Okay, so if you see, the status would be valid, and if you scroll down, there will be a error section also on the top, and it says there is null. Okay, so there is no error in this code. Now I'm just going to do one thing. I'm going to remove this disabled check for right now. It will block my code debugging, so I cannot actually debug if this is in the disabled form. So I'll just say always enable the form right now. Okay, so now when I have this form and I click on submit, it returns me ng form, and the ng form I have null errors over here, but the form is in an invalid state. Okay, that's fine, because this errors over here is for the form, not for each control. So there are how many controls? There are 9 controls in this form. Sorry, 8 controls in this form, and those are available in the control section, and each of the control will also have a status on them. Okay, so let's check the age control. It's ordered based on the alphabetical order. So don't worry about what is the ordering of it. You have age is set to invalid. And what is the error on it? So the age says it's a required error. Okay, credit check also, it's required. Let's do one thing. Let's fill in the age over here. So I will fill in 12 and submit the form again. Now let's check the error over here on the age. So we go to controls and there is no error on this. So when you have any errors, those will be available on the errors object of the control. Okay, clear? Now what we can do is we need to also tell the user, like if I remove this value, how will the user know that, okay, this age is required? The user will never know that because it's not showing any error messages to the user. So now we have to somehow add error messages into this form to show that yes, there is an error in this code or the form submission. So what we do is we use these names which we have added over here. The hash reference or the variable which we have created, this will be used over here. So what I will do is I will create a p tag. Okay, no, I will create a span tag over here. Okay, add a CSS class on it. I will call it as error. Add the span tag in it. And over here, I'll write this is required. Okay. Now let's run this code and it shows this message over here. Okay, it should not be shown if I type in something over here, but still it shows over here. So what I have to do is I have to control that when to show this control error message. So that can be done using a ng if. So here I'm going to write ng if get the reference of this control. So I'll write first name dot errors. So if there is any error on it, then we will show this. One second. We'll call the method has error on it. Okay, ng model. This is first name. Let's do one thing. Let's write errors only, and we'll use the JSON pipe over here just to see what are the errors available on this control. Okay, so you can see it says required is true. So there is a required error on this control. Yes, so that's fine. So this has to be shown if there is an error. And now what I can do is I can write over here that if another condition over here, ng if that is there a required error on this control, like this. Okay, so let's check this out. So we'll write like this. Because of TypeScript, it has to be used like this. Okay, so now, yes, this control is required, so that's why it shows this. But now let's type in something and the message goes away. So when I type something in it, the error becomes null and the error message is removed from the screen. So this way I can control that if a particular control is not filled in, I can show a error for that. Okay, and this has to be done for each of the control. So this is for first name. We'll create another one for last name over here, email address, password, mobile number, age, tax ID, and check credit. Okay, and all of them will be using their own ng model references. So this will be for last name. This has to update for last name like this. This will be for email. This will be email.errors and errors. This is for password. So we'll use password and password over here. This is mobile, the mobile number over here. So this will be, this is for age. So we'll write age. Yes. Tax ID, check credit, like this. Okay. So this way it will show errors for each of the control. So whichever control is now required, you have to fill them and control will be updated. So this is the way how you show error messages. So that's why every control is required. For every control, I need to access it by using the hash variable which we have created. The template reference is used for picking the control to show the error messages in this case. So based on the controls variable, I can get information on it, and based on that, I can show the error messages which are required. Okay. Any questions on this? Guys, any question on this? Okay, so I'll commit this. So please try this on your system. Yeah.
Why ID equal to?
So that's the thing which I showed you. Hash ID is equal to ng model. That's the reason why we need it. So to get the errors on that control and show the error messages relevant to it. Jayesh, your audio is not, I can't hear you actually, it's not working. Okay, so I got a question from Subhaj, why we use two different things. Are you referring to the property over here, the ng model? This one, hash thing? Because these are template driven variable forms. They are being set up by the Angular team like this way only. So if you want to receive the values from it, you have to create everything in the template and then access that in the variable. So in the reactive form, it's a little more simpler, but in a template driven form, yeah, this is the way they are handled. Okay, another question? Okay, please try this out. I will give you another 5 minutes and then continue. So I got a question. After fill text box, can I apply success message? Yes, you can add a success message if you want, but what is the use of it? Because the data is not being sent to the server right now. So you can just write a else condition and then say, I want to show some success message. Everyone, okay, so let's continue. Sheikh, I got a question. How to stop the JavaScript on browser? Not sure what are you saying over here? I have unmuted you.
Yes, thank you, Praveen. So, I mean, in the overview session, you said that when user stopped the JavaScript on their browser, then we cannot perform these validations, right? Now we perform these validations. So, if suppose we as a user, I want to stop the JavaScript to
Okay,
stop these
so
validations, how can
okay,
I do that?
so in this case, you cannot, because if you stop the JavaScript code, the Angular code will also not work. So it won't be any kind of a problem for you. With the Angular code is dependent on JavaScript, and without JavaScript, your Angular application will not load.
Okay.
Okay, so in this specific case, it's not a problem for us. But if you are like in a general way, if your form is implemented in without Angular or React JS or any single page application, which is highly dependent on JavaScript, then the user can disable the validations and send the data. But in this
Where
case, it
can
will
we
not.
disable that validation? On the
I
browser itself. Can you show
I
me it once?
I have to check. You can just check. You have to search on it, like go Google just how to stop this JavaScript on Chrome or
Sure,
which web
sure.
which
Then
browser.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Then I'll search for it. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Hi Poonam. Yes. Okay. So our question: why we created screens? So screens is created to be a wrapper of a page. So sometimes a page may require multiple components. Okay. So we can create reusable components and then assemble them into a single screen. So that's why I have created a screens folder. All right. So let's check how these validations work. So one thing in this validation rule over here is there is one small problem. If you have noticed that when I load the form for the first time, all of these validations are shown up over here. So is it good? No, yeah, it's not good. So what we should do is we should control a way that these validations should not show when the form loads for the first time. So how that can be done? So what we can do is let's submit this form and check the form status over here. So every control, when you have the controls over here, every control has status available on them. So these are the status as pristine, touched over here. Okay. So in Angular, actually there are status as pristine, touched, untouched, and dirty. Okay. So pristine means that the control is loaded and the value of the control has not been changed yet. So if the age control has been loaded with some value, the value has not been changed. The touched means that the user has not touched the control. So it's like the user has not focused on this control. Okay. So let me do one thing. Let me focus on this age control. Now the age control is now in focus, and I will click the submit. It prints the form data. Let's check the form data for the age control now. It will say the touched status is now being set to true, but the status over here for pristine still means that the control has been touched, but the user has not changed to the default value. So default value over here is empty, so there is no value in it, so the default value has not been changed. Now over here I will just write 23. So now I am changing the default value of empty to 23. Submit this and you will get a different status over here. Now on the change, you will get it's pristine is equal to set to false and touched is equal to true. So ideally, your error message should only be shown when the user has touched the control, so that the user has actually made any change, or not even made, like they have focused on the control. Then only we should tell them that the control value is not correct. So what we should do is, in this code over here, when I have errors, I should also write a condition that it should also check if the touched value is true or not. Okay, so if there is an error and the touched value is true, then only show the error message. Okay, let me change these values. Now it will not show those error messages when the form loads, and the error messages will be only shown when I will focus on them. So I will focus on the first one, first name, focus out, and it shows this is required. Focus on the last name, focus out, shows it's required. So this way I can control when does the error message should be shown. Okay, now if I submit it, the error status of each of the control will be over here, and you can see they're set to undefined. Now I can fill in values. The moment I fill in values, they all will be gone. And now I can successfully submit this form. Okay, so you can see all are valid now. Okay, so we need to use these status like touched or pristine to know that what is the current state of the control, and do we want to show messages or not for the control. Okay, so I'll commit this code. Okay, so I got a question. Can you explain pristine again? So pristine means that right now when the form loads, all of the form controls have no values in them. So that's the default value, that there is no value in the control, empty controls. Okay, if the form is empty, if the control is empty, so it is for actually each of the controls. So right now, let's say if I do a submit, I will get the age control as pristine true, and it has no value in it. Okay, so when I change the value in it, like set to 12 and submit, now you see the status over here, it will be pristine is equal to false. So when you change the default value from value A to value B, then the pristine status changes. Okay, is it clear now? So apart from pristine, there is a dirty status also. Dirty status is available in the reactive form. So dirty is the opposite of pristine. So, and there is a touched and untouched status. So they are just opposite of each other. Okay, so now I got a question. Instead of message, can we show a red border? Yes, we can show. I will cover to that, but first implement this and then we'll continue. Okay, so let's continue. All right, so now I will show you how to show a red border or some CSS style required for these controls. Very simple, because we know the control is here and I want to change the CSS property based on it. So I can use, let's say over here on this input box, I want to actually, yeah, the input box has to be in red color. So we'll say ng class. Okay, in the ng class, I can receive this variable, which is first name. I can write errors. If there is errors on it, sorry, like this actually. So we'll write object, we'll say the name of the control, or sorry, the error class, that is error, and write the condition for it. So how it works, if you remember, ng class, we have to provide an object. The key over here is the name of the class, and this is the condition that when to show the CSS class. So if there is an error on it, then show the error class. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll go to our CSS in the style.css over here, and I'm going to create error CSS for input control. So if the control is type of input and it has a CSS class of error, then it should have border 1 pixel solid red. Okay, and if the span has an error class, the span should have a color of red like this. Okay, let's run this code now. So it shows the error over here. Okay, so the same check has to be done on the error class also. See, it shows the error message, the red border on it, but I have to actually change the condition to also consider the touched value in it also. That means if the control has error and it has been touched, then only show the error. So now I have touched the control, exit the control, and it shows the error like this. The red border shows up on it. Okay, so I can add the same directive to each of the control. Okay, and for them, I have to change the name of the controls. So it's going to be this. Okay, all the controls are here. Now, any controls which I miss out, like see, there is a min length error over here. So now it's going to be fine. So this way, you can show some CSS also on each of the control based on the error. Okay, so try this out. I will comment this code. Any questions on this? Okay, so now we're going to see validations for some of the controls like email. In the email control, there are two types of validations which are required. So first, it has to be required, and then it has to be a email validation. So I have to show two type of errors also. So over here, I can say this control is required, and required will give me the required validation. If I write the errors.email, that will give me the error for the email validation. Okay, and over here I can say email format is not correct. Okay. Now let's type in an email over here. So just write like this. So now it shows me that the email format is not correct. So if I type in something correct as an email format, this will work fine. Okay, so now if I set the email address over here like this, like something @something, the validation passes over here. So it says that this is the correct format, but we know that this is not the correct because it doesn't have .com or the last zone which we need to define for it. So ideally the email format should be like this, where it says abc@abc.com or something like that. Okay, so this is the correct email format. So that's the issue with the email validation in a form. So it doesn't work properly based on requirements that it should also check the zone that it is present or not. So what we do is we use a different type of validation on it, or we can, which is implemented using regular expressions. So what I will do is I will look for a regular expression. So email regular expression. So what kind of regular expression we can use? So does it have? So if you know regular expressions, these are the patterns which can be used for finding out if the string matches a specific pattern or not. Okay, so I don't have any specific pattern. So what I will do is I'll just look for some way which generally is used. So this sounds promising, which says email regex, and this works most of the time. Okay, so let's use this then. So I will copy this regular expression. Let's try this also. So let's say over here abc@abc.com, and yep, this pattern matches our requirement. So if I don't write .com, this doesn't matches. Okay, I feel this validation will work perfectly fine in our requirement. So let's implement this. Okay, so what we can do is instead of email, I will say there's a pattern validation I want to implement. So I'll remove email and say pattern. So only one pattern can be added at once, and the regular expression which I've copied from the site, I will paste it over here. Okay, and it will be used over here. But now it faces the error because I am not able to add the regular expression directly in the template. It doesn't work properly. So what I should do is I should go to the TS code and I will create a variable over here, call it as email regex is equal to the regular expression like this. Okay, so this will be the validation which we need. So we'll keep it over here and use this in my template. So here I'll just say this is the email regex which you should use. Okay, and we can pass in a regular expression or a string to it. So that's why it's going to work. Now let's go to the control and let's write abc@abc like this. Okay, and it shows error over here. The red border is shown when there is an error. Now I will write abc@abc.com, and it should not show the error. Okay, that's fine. I understand why it is shown, because first we have to check the pattern, and we'll do this debugging by saying print the errors which are on this control like this. So let's see. So we'll write abc at abc.com, and it doesn't work. Okay, so let's set it like this. Let's set it again. Now it works fine. Okay, so it was just, I have to write square brackets because I'm using a variable over here. So I have to write it in square brackets to pick the variable for the regular expression and use it over here. So now the validation is based on the regular expression format which I have used. The only catch over here is you can only have one pattern added. You cannot say that I have a pattern for numbers, I have a pattern for email address validation on the same control again and again. So I should not be writing like this, like pattern 1, pattern 2, something like this. This will not work. So only one pattern is allowed. Okay, and that can be a regular expression which you can define in your TS code, or even inside a service if you can, if you want to define in a service and use it globally in your project, you can use that too. Okay, so you can use this. So I got a question from Mandeep. The question says, can we have a validation on the first name and last name to only allow alphabets? So you can use pattern for it. I will show you the example for that too. Then I will comment the code. Yeah, I will go to the HTML, and over here I'll go to first name. So I'll say it is required, and it has a pattern validation on it, which will be that it will match A to Z or A to Z like this. Okay, so this is a way to write a regular expression for alphabets, and we'll also print the errors which are on this control just to see does it works or not. So let's run this. First name is required, yes. Now it returns error validation. It says A to Z, actual value is this. It's not valid. Why? Okay, try that. Okay, so let's try with square brackets and just say this over here and bring this value over here to alphabet x like this. Okay, and bring this over here to validate. Now on this code, and no errors. When I put in numbers in it, it will give me an error that there is a required pattern validation because the numbers is not the right validation. It should be only alphabets which are allowed in it. So I can just write like this, and this will work. Okay, so you can use the same validation on this one also. So you can say this and this only have to support alphabet. Okay, so we'll come in this code. Please check this out. Any other questions? Okay, so please try this out and then we'll continue. We'll give you 5 minutes for this. Actually, let's take a break for 10 minutes and then we'll continue with the other validations. Okay, yes, Sheikh, I will unmute you.
Hi, Praveen. So,
Yes.
I mean, in the TS, while defining the regex, you are adding the forward backward slash, right? So usually for string we encode with double quotation, right? So is it a TypeScript
No. So in
definition to
JavaScript,
add that?
no. In JavaScript, if you need to write regular expression, we have to write like this.
Okay. But I
This,
used with double quotes, it worked for me. So will it work for double quotes too?
yeah, it will work, but it's just a way of writing regular expression. So when you know that it
Okay.
is a regular expression, you have to write like this, that it's a regular expression code. It's not a string which you're writing.
Okay, got it. And one more question I have is, in which case can we, I mean, we can use Pristin. So for touched, I mean, whether I entered it or not, so for required field validation, I can do that. So if the value has been changed or not, so in which case we'll use that Pristin.
So Pristine can be used when you are editing a form, like if you already have submitted some data and now you're updating the form, then you can run the check that, okay, this control has been updated by the user.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Praveen.
Welcome. Okay, guys, let's do one thing. Let's take a break for 10 minutes and then we'll join back and I will show you a custom validation which we are going to create for this form. Everyone, right, so let's continue. So any questions till now? Okay, so now let's create a custom validation in our form. So we have seen how simple validations which are inbuilt into a code can be done. But now I have a requirement that how to use custom validations. Okay, so let's see what kind of custom validation I can do in this code. So I have this tax ID over here. So in India, there is a tax ID which is called as PAN card. Now, in a PAN card, there is a small validation which is that PAN card is going to be something like I'm typing in the console over here. That PAN card will always have this kind of format. It has 5 characters in the starting, then 4 numbers, and then last there will be another character. Okay, and the 5th character in the PAN card will always be the first character of your surname. So if I write a surname over here, which is like ABC and DEF, so the PAN card should be something like any few characters. So let's say like this. The 5th character will be the first character of your last name, then few numbers, and then another character. So this is how a PAN card is designed, or the tax ID is designed in India. So that's a very simple validation which we have. Now, I want to verify this tax ID that it should match this format. Okay, so if I only want to match this particular format, I can just write a pattern validation for it. So I can just say the first will be the 5 characters, 5 alphabets, then there will be 4 numbers, and then at the last there is another character. But we also need to validate that this particular value should match with the last name. Okay, so we have to create a custom validation for this. Okay, so now in this case, the custom validation is going to be combined for 2 different controls. So you can create a custom validation which will work on a control, one single control, or it can work on a complete form also. Okay, is the screen share working now? Got the message that it's not working. Okay, so I'll just repeat again. So what I want to do is like a tax ID in India, how it's formatted is you have 5 characters. So you can say five characters, then 4 numbers, and then another ID. So that will be the same way how your PAN card is going to be formatted. Okay, but the 5th character over here is going to be the first character of your last name. So if your last name is DEF, so the character over here will be D in your PAN card. Okay, so I want to implement this kind of a validation on the form data. So when I add my tax ID over here, it should validate that the tax ID should have the last name in it to verify the PAN card format is correct or not. Okay, so let's try this out. For this, actually, I need to do a validation of 2 different controls. So first, the tax ID is dependent on the data which is coming from last name, because that's how I will get the last name. Then I need the value of the tax ID, what I have typed in it, and validate that. Now in this case, because there are 2 controls which are involved in this validation, it cannot be done on one single control. It has to be implemented at the form level. Okay, so what I will do is I'll go to the top, and over here I will implement the validation. So I will just say verify tax ID. Okay, and in this I will this will be a directive which we have to create. So I don't have this directive right now. So first we have to create this directive, which will be added for the validation. So all of these validations which we have used, the required email, all of these are actually directives which are used for validation. So let's create a new directive over here. So I'll write ng generate d for directive. In the directives folder, we'll create a directive, call it as verify tax ID. Okay, is it created? Let's check. Yes, we have the verify tax ID directive over here, and the selector for that is verify tax ID, EduRecord verify tax ID. So we'll just simplify it. We'll just say it's going to be verify tax ID. So that's the selector for it. Okay. Now we need to implement the validation on it. So the validations which we build for template driven form, they should be shared, they should be written in a way that they can be shared with a reactive form also. So what we do is we'll write another service, actually not a service, actually I'm wrong, we don't need a service, we need to create a new file over here. So we'll call a validators folder. In the validators folder, I will create a new file in it. We'll call it as verify tax ID .ts. So this will be a this will be a file which will have the validation method to how to verify the tax ID, and this will be used for validating your data in a reactive form also. Okay, so this is the method. We're going to write a function in it which will be called as verify tax ID, and we'll use this to verify the control. Okay, so let's update this directive, how this has to be implemented for the validation. So first create these two directives, then we'll continue. So I will give you 5 minutes for this. Create the directive, create the file, and update the form HTML with the directive over here like this. So we'll commit this code. Then continue. Okay, so let's continue. So the next step would be, so I have the directive created. Okay, so in this directive, I have to make few changes. So first of all, this directive is going to implement an interface which is called as validator. Okay, now when you have the validate interface, it requires you to create a validate method. Okay, like this. So you will add the validate method. The validate method will provide a control. So we don't have to work with the element reference. We have to work with the abstract control. So this is one single control. So we have used form group, form control, form array. All of them are converted into an abstract control. Okay, so it's a base class for a form control, form group, or a form array. So this will work in our case. And it should return a validation error or null. So if there is a validation issue, then you have to return a validation error. Otherwise, you have to return null. So I will just return null over here. So that means there is no error from this directive. Okay, so that's done. Now, in the decorator also, we have to make few changes. So you have to set up providers for it. So what is this providing? So it's going to provide the Angular application a validator. So we'll define that it provides a ng validator, and it's going to use existing class, which is going to be the tax directive class, the tax ID directive class, and it's going to be creating multiple instances. Okay, so this is how your directive is created for the validation. Okay, so now let's run this code. Let's see what does control prints over here. What do we get as control over here? So I can see this is the form group which I have received. And where is this form group coming from? This is coming from verify tax ID directive. So it has printed out the form group. Why the form group is printed over here? And in the form group, we have controls in it. The reason is when I added this validation on the form group. So whichever level you have added it. So I'm added it on the form group, on the ng form over here. So it's receiving the whole form over here. If you have a single control which you want to validate, like in our case, we have to validate two different controls. We use this form. If you want to validate only single control, then you can add it on a single control also. In our special requirement, we have to implement like this, that I want to verify two different controls. Okay, so I am able to access the controls over here. So if I run this code, I can know that this is the form group which I have, and I can access controls on it. So which controls I need to access is the last name control and the tax ID control. Now, the thing can be that these controls can be named differently in different projects, and this validation can be reused in different forms. So what I can do is I can assign it as a property and say what controls I want to validate. So I will pass the name of them in an array to this validation. So I will write last name and tax ID over here. Okay, so control 1 and control 2, which I want to validate. So first will be my last name and the second will be my tax ID. So that will be added. So I'm getting an error over here that this is not a known property. Yeah, that's fine. So we'll go to the directive and add input over here because I'm passing it as a property. So I write input. Now the name of the directive will also be can also be used as a property over here. So we'll receive this property. We're going to receive it as a type of a string array. And I don't have any initial values for it right now. So that's going to be provided over here. Now, From this, I can come up with the values. So what I can do is over here in the validate method, I can write last name control is equal to control which we are receiving the form over here. I should actually call it as the form. The form dot get. Form dot get means what I want to get from the form. I want to get the the last name control from it. So how do I know the name from it? It will come from this directive over here. Okay, so one problem over here is with the name of this property. So the property is called as tax ID, verify tax ID, but it actually has the names of the control. So it's a little confusing. So what I can do is I can pass the name of the property in the input and receive the value of them of the value property as controls over here. Okay, so now I can say last name control. What is the last name? It is equal to, from the controls array, it's going to be the first value. What is the tax ID? It's going to be from the controls array, it's going to be the second value. So those are available over here. So let's print them and see what do we get as values over here. Okay, let's write a console.log and print these two values. Okay, so let's run this and I will go to apply loan form. Okay, so I got an error that it's not able to find the properties of 0 and 1 on a undefined value because the value initially is not provided, and that gives an error. So what we can do is we can wait for this controls to return a value to us. So I can write if controls dot controls is present, then run this code. Okay, let's go back. And yep, so I can see over here, I have received two controls over here. So first control is my, what is the name of this control? Let's check. So which one is it? Yeah, it's going to be, I know, like it's going to be, first one is going to be last name. This one is going to be the last name control. And this is going to be my tax ID control. So there are two controls which are received. From these controls, I can get their value. So I can write value and value over here. Okay, so let's see what do we get over here. So we get the value as undefined over here. So that's good. So now if I type in something in the last name, let's say DEF, I get DEF is equal to the last name value. And in the tax ID, if I type something over here, I will get the tax ID value also. Okay, that's perfect. I'm getting the two values in the form, in the validation. Now I just have to write a custom logic to validate them. So how do we do that? Very simple. I know that the last ID has a value which has to match as the fifth item of the tax ID. So what I can do is I can, from this whole string, I can get the first value of it. So I can say this is a string value and this is also a string value, and write a condition over here. So if actually let me do one thing. So I write value over here. I want to write splice. I want to actually break the string into smaller parts. So I'll write splice. And what do I want to get? So I want to get the value of the first character. So that will be from the first index to the second index, whatever value is there, I want to get that. And over here, I want to get the value from the 5th character to the 6th. Let's try this out. I'm not sure will it work properly, but let's try this out. Okay, so it says cannot find the method. Let's type in something and let's type in something over here. And yep, it works fine. See, I'm writing DEF, and over here I want to write A, B, C, D, E, some values. So the 5th character over here is actually 3, and I have to just change the indexing over here. So it should be actually from 4th, because the indexing starts from 0, so it will be 4 to 5th. So if the index starts from 0, so this will be the 5th character till the 6th character. So that's only going to be the 5th character which we are going to get. Okay, so let's run this code again. So no errors, everything is good. Let's type in DEF ABC and write a tax ID over here. So what tax ID you want to implement? So we'll say A, 5 times A, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a number. So we got A over here, but I will change the ID over here to D. So it's going to print me from this, it's going to print me the first character, that is D. And from the tax ID, it's going to print me this character, which is the 5th character, as D. So that's perfect. This is working fine. Okay. So now what I have to do is I have to just simply say that is this correct or not. So I will write if. I will change this to lowercase. So I'll say to lowercase and to lowercase, because the person can start their first name with the uppercase character and the tax ID with the lowercase character. So that will give a conflict. So we'll just standardize it. So we'll change all of them to lowercase. And now if these two values are same, we're going to return null. Okay. If they are not same, the else part of it, I'm going to say return tax ID. Okay. And a message over here. We can say just write over here as false, or anything which I want to pass in over here. So I can write the result is equal to false. Okay, so this means the values are not matching. So even I don't need this object, I can just say tax ID is equal to false over here. Okay, so this will become my tax ID validation. Okay, let's run this code. Now write the details over here. So email address format has to be corrected. It's good. This will be some characters. This will be some numbers. Okay, let's write the tax ID. So the first character over here is A. So write Q over T, but instead of T, I will write A, 4 numbers, and the last will be a character. Okay, that's my tax ID over here, which I added, and submit this form. So if I submit this, we'll get a status that the form is valid. Everything is valid on this form. Okay, now let's write a wrong tax ID. So I know the last name's first character is A, so it should be A, but I will change it to T over here. Submit this. Now let's check the form status. So you can see the status is invalid on the form level, and the validation is actually shown on the form level only. It's not at the controls, it's at the form level. Okay, at the form level, we can see there is a tax ID validation and it says false. So there is an error on the tax ID, it's false. So this is how the error is being returned. So whatever you return over here, that will become the error in your code. Okay, so now how do I show the message on the screen? It's pretty simple. We know that the form is available, so I can go scroll down, and over here I will create another section for span if dot errors. And what kind of error it is going to be? It is going to be a tax ID error. If it is there, I have to write like this. Okay, and if there is an error for this, then I will write the error message. And it says tax ID format is invalid. Okay, so let's try this out. Does this works properly or not? Now run this code, write ABC. Over here we'll write DEF, some email address, some password, some phone number, age, and let's write the tax ID. So I'll say QWERTY 1234A and submit this. Okay, so is there an error? Yes, there is an error for tax ID, and it doesn't show up over here. So that's the tax ID error. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's print the error over here, what we get on this. Yep, so it started giving the tax ID error. Okay, so if I write something over here, okay, and yeah, so it prints out there is a tax ID error, but it doesn't show the error. The reason is I should actually wrote tax ID is equal to true. It should not be false over here because the condition is not getting passed in this case. So I should actually say in the error, over here, I should actually say this is going to be true so that it at least passes the condition in our case. So let's run this code again. Yep, so the format is not correct. It shows the error, some password, some number, age. Let's write the tax ID. Okay, so it shows there is a text, the format of this tax ID is not correct. And the reason is the fifth character should be A. So when I change this to A, now it's a correct format and it verifies that yes, there is no error on this and doesn't shows any message on the control. Few things which I have to do is I should also write that the validation should be only checked if the tax ID control is touched. Like this. So if the control is touched, then only show the errors for the text ID. So now when I run this code, type in something here, some password, phone number, age, write some tax ID, and it says tax ID format is not correct. And we can correct this by just saying it's going to be G, some number, like this. Now the validation is fine. Okay, so you can check the formatting, or you can even write a regular expression also. So the thing is, the format of this tax ID is always 5 characters, 4 numbers, and 1 character at the last. So I can also write a regular expression to additionally check if the format is also correct and the fifth character matches with the last name. So this is how your custom validations can be implemented. Okay, any questions? Okay, so try this on your system. I'll give you 5 minutes for this. Then I will do a recap of what I did. Okay, so try this first, and then we'll do a recap of it, how this whole validation thing is implemented. Everyone, so any questions? I think there is only one request to do a recap of it. So let's do a recap of this code. Okay, so the clear requirement is that I have to create a custom directive to validate the tax ID. Why? Because there is no current pattern which can validate that. It's a custom requirement that this is how the data has to be checked. Okay, so the logic in this case is the way I have designed this directive is it works at the form level. So it verifies your form is correct or not. Why? Because it needs two different controls to verify the tax ID. First, it needs the last name and the tax ID control to verify it. Okay, so how do we implement the logic on the form then? So what I do is I will create a new directive. I will call it as verify tax ID and pass in the two controls which I want to verify. The first control will be the last name, from where the last name is going to be received. The second is the tax ID. So where does the tax ID is going to be received? Okay, so this should match the names of the control which you have created over here. So this name which you have, it should be the same as the name in the array. Okay, if you make a mistake in it, it will not work. Now then, what is the code in the directive? So this directive is a special type of directive which implements a validator. So when you implement a validator, it will have a validate method, and the validate method will automatically receive the control. A control over here is an interface. Abstract control, sorry. Abstract control is an interface for a base class for form control, form group, or form array. So even if you have control, form group, or array, this abstract control will work on it. And what we receive over here is the form. We don't receive the element reference. We directly receive the form over here. And what we have to return is the validation errors and or null, not and, actually validation errors or null. So what error you want to return, or null. Null is returned when there is no error on it, on the data. Validation error is returned when there is actually an error. Now, how do I check this code? So what I do is, first of all, because the validation depends on two different other controls, I will check the controls property is being passed or not. So if the controls property is passed, then I will step into the code and get the controls from the system. So I will get the names of the controls. So that will be last name and tax ID, which I will get from the controls property. Based on that, the form has a method which is called as form.get. Form.get is used for getting a particular control from the form. So we'll get that, get the value of it, slice the value, and convert that to lowercase. So I'm getting the first character from this code. So from the last name, I'm getting the first character. From the tax ID, we are getting the fifth character from the code. Okay, I'm comparing them. If both of them are matching, then there is no error. If they are not matching, then return this and say there is a tax ID error on this code and return true. Now that is being received in my template. So over here in this code, you will receive the error message. Sorry, over here we'll receive the error on the form. So we'll check on the form, the apply loan form, is there an error on it for the tax ID, and the tax ID control is touched or not. If both of them are true, then show an error saying tax ID format is invalid. So this way, both the controls are being validated. Okay, so I got a question. Can the so form validation, custom validation will be applied only on the form level? No, so you can apply on the control level also. In this special case, the validation is required on two different controls. So that's why I have to use it on the form level. But if you have a validation which only needs to be worked on one single control, then you can also implement a control level also. I will show you example of control level. We have limited time right now for the session, but I will show you example for that. Let's be quick in it. So create a new directive. Ng G directives. In the directives folder, tax ID format. I hope this is different from that other one. Yeah. So I write tax ID format as a name for this directive. Okay, it creates this one. All right, so I will call this as tax ID format. Okay, so this will also implement the validator, and it will require a validate method in it, and we'll have the control over here. Okay, so now this validation I'm going to implement on the tax ID control only. So I can write over here. So I'll just write tax ID format, and now I can check the details of it. So over here I'll write I'm going to verify the control, so I will receive the control. So what I will receive over here, so write return null just to go away this error, and I will write over here console.log control. Okay, so let's see what do we get over here. Is the validation running? Yep, it's not running because I have to define the providers also. So I'll say this is going to provide us validation. So it's going to provide ng validator, going to use the existing class that is going to be tax ID format directive, and it's going to be multi-true like this. Okay, now you can see it returns me the control over here. So this is the tax ID control. Okay, one single control. Okay, so now let's check the value of it. So how do we check the value? We can just say value of this control is going to be value equal to control dot value, and that's it. Okay, that will return us the value. Okay, right now it's undefined. Type something in it and it prints the value. Perfect. Now I want to verify the format of it. So it should be first 5 characters, 4 numbers, and 1 single character. So let's try to write a regular expression for it. So regex, format regex is going to be equal to regular expression, or you can just write like this, the A to Z or A to Z for the 5 characters, then it's going to be 0 to 9 for the numbers. That's going to be 4 numbers, and after this it should be another A to Z or to Z like this for 1 number. I hope this will be a valid regular expression. We can check this out. We can write it over here, and let's see. So if I write 4 numbers over here, 5 numbers over here, 4 over here, and see if it works. Nope, it doesn't work. Let me try. Okay. Yeah, this is fine. This is working correctly. Okay, that's good. So this regular expression works. It matches this format. So that means this is correct. So if I write at least in this format, it should work. Yeah. Okay, I think one is enough over here. Okay, so this is correct. So I will just keep this regular expression over here. And what we'll do is we're going to just say if value which we're getting, so value is a string. So I can say as type of a string. So I don't have a defined type for it. So but we know that the value is going to be type of a string. So now on this string, because it's a string class from JavaScript, okay, so we can get methods on it like match, and we can match it with this regular expression which we have. Okay, so if it matches, then we're going to return null. If it doesn't matches, then we're going to return error, which will be tax ID format is equal to true. Okay, so that's the error which I want to return. So now the same control has two validations. One is coming from the form level, which verifies two different controls, and the tax ID is only for one single control. So let's run this and check. Okay, so getting cannot read property of undefined. Yeah, because if this value is not there, then it throws an error. All right, so what we can do is just write check over here, value and value dot with this, and checks the result. Okay, now let's check the text ID. So let's write some wrong format over here, and it prints out tax ID format is wrong. Okay, so let's type something over here. This is correct, but if I run this code now, let's see, does it prints a form error? So see, in this case, I've written 5 alphabets, 4 numbers, but didn't write the the last alphabet over here. And if I go to the text control, I will see there is a validation error, which is showing that, okay, the tax format is not correct. So over here, if I write like something as if the last is a character, then the error will go away, and then it prints out, yes, this is correct. So you can see there is no error in the format, and it also verifies that this 5th character is matching with the character of the last name, the first character of the last name. So to show the error for this control, what we'll do is, because it's a error for the control over here, we'll write like this. The name of the error is called as text ID format. We'll write like this, and we'll write invalid format should match A, B, C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, 4, F. So this is the format here tax ID should match with. Okay, let's write a wrong tax ID over here, something like this, and it will show a format error over here that invalid format should match 5 correct alphabets, 4 numbers, and another alphabet over here, and also prints out the tax ID format error that this is also incorrect. So let's write something now which is going to be valid. So we'll say QWERTY at 1, 2, 3, 4. This is correct. Now the tax ID is not matching. The 5th character over here is T, so the last name should match with T over here. So I'll just write Tango over here, and Tango, the first character is T, and in the QWERTY over here, the tax ID which I've added, the 5th character is T, so it works fine, and the validations are validated that this tax ID matches with the last name, and the format of this control is also correct. Okay, so this way you can validate multiple controls from the form level, or you can write validations for each single control when they're required. Okay, so the good thing about custom validations is you can have n number of custom validations on one single control. So there is no limit. So like in the previous example, I told you that the pattern can be only one on the control. But if you are using a regular expression, you can use one thing. You can create custom validations for them, use the same pattern in it, and use multiple validation rules on the same control if needed based on regular expressions. Okay, any questions? Okay, so I got a question from Sheikh. The first question is, why do we need providers? So providers are required in the validation to tell the Angular code that we are adding a custom validation. So whenever you use this validation, it will inform the Angular code base that there is a new validation rule which has been implemented, and we are providing you that by this class. So that's why we have to add the providers, that what we are providing to Angular. Okay, so same thing was done in the app module in the previous sessions. When I implemented the interface, I have to define that what interfaces I want to use. So I provided them over here in the app module. So this was done for the interfaces. Same way, you have to tell Angular that what custom validations you need, and you will provide them in the class over here directly. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second question is, why @input tax ID? So the tax ID was used over here as an input over here. The reason was I need to know the name of the controls which I want to validate, because these validations can be reused in different forms. So if you're creating a form for applying a loan and you're checking the tax ID like this, this will be fine. But if you're creating a registration form where the user is registering to a new bank account, and then also you need this validation, so maybe the control names are different. So if you want to pass in the control names from the form, from the template, you have to define an input and pass them from the template level. So that's done over here. So passing the name of the controls. So first will be my last name control. What is the name of it? And what is the name of the tax ID control? Okay, so next question is, instead of ng validator, we have any other? There are a few other providers. Like I've told you, there is an interceptor provider, which you have to configure. But for validations, this is the only provider you have to use. Okay, so kind of we are over the we are about to finish our session. So today we have covered validations for template driven forms. Tomorrow we are going to implement reactive form validation. So we are going to create the same form with reactive form validations. So the same directive, same everything, will just extract the code into a reactive form. It's going to be much shorter because reactive form validations are much more simpler than implementing on a template driven form. Okay, so in your assignments, there will be two different assignments, one for template driven form and one for reactive form. So you can complete that assignment for template driven form today, and for the reactive form, you can complete that by tomorrow's session. Okay, any questions you have? Okay, Sabuj, I've sent you the request. Okay, guys, this is the last topic which we have covered. In the tomorrow session, we are going to continue and implement validations on the reactive form. If you want to exit the webinar, you can now. I'm not going to cover any new topics. I will be just taking questions from the participants over here for another 5 minutes, and then I will end this webinar. So if you don't have any other questions, you can drop off and continue with the day. And thank you everyone for joining. And yeah, yes, Sabuj.
The screen is visible?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Yeah, just I'm having a scenario that let's suppose I'm having this form and I'm filling this form with some random data. What I need is that as soon as I click the button, I need to show the details here. But the main problem is that when I am changing any value, the details are also changing. I don't need that. I just need that when I'm changing the value, when I'm submit the form, then only the detail will reflect here. The updated details will reflect here. How can I do that?
So you have to create two different properties. The first property will be connected with the form by using ng model. The second property will only be updated when you do the submit button.
Same thing I have done. The model is here, and on submitting this, I am equal means assigning the value.
Can you show that?
Yeah, I'm that screen only visible.
Okay.
This is the model, and this is the show details, another variable. And on submitting the form, I am equal to means assigning the values of the model to the show details.
Okay, so what's happening is when you say show details is equal to this dot model, it's passing the reference, and once the reference is been passed, the controls will be sorry, the two properties are going to be linked together. So whenever you change the model, the property for the show details will automatically change, because that's how JavaScript objects are assigned together. So what you have to do is you have to break the chain. So you have to create a way that the object is not connected to each other. So what you do is you wrap your object, the this dot model with the object. No, line number 27.
With object.
Yeah, like wrap this with the object. Curly brackets. Yeah, just curly brackets. Your screen is quite slow, so yeah. Now write triple dot this dot model. 3 dots in front of this dot model. Even 3 dots. 3 dots. Spread operator.
In front of this.
Yeah.
In front of the model.
This dot model, just in front of this.
Yes.
This is the back of the model. In front means
yes,
you have to write three dots.
My screen is slow. That's why
it's very slow. Okay, let's wait.
Now it's in front of the model.
Okay, I still not for me, but you can save this and try. Still waiting for the update to come.
Okay, I'm checking. Let me check. Yes, it's working. It's working fine.
Okay, so what you did over here is when you use the spread operator, it creates a new object every time when you're submitting it. So it never creates a chain or a connection between the model and the show details. So that chain is broken. So now
it
will work properly.
That's a nice thing. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Guys, I have committed the code on GitHub, so you can check the code from there. Okay, anyone else has any other questions? Yeah, Sheikh, what you need for the fake API, let me know.
So I have created the db.json file, but nothing I have added. So I want to know, like, when we created the login page, when we created the registration page, we were able to do it, right? So I mean, how can I create that fake API here? I'm running this API, I mean fake API, and from this point, I'm not sure what to do.
So, okay, so you have to first create an object in it, right? Curly brackets. And you need to create APIs for products.
Yes.
Write products in it. Colon. Now copy the data which you have in the API. No, it's an array, not object.
I directly have it. Let me
Yeah,
copy.
so copy the data over here. Copy this whole array. Paste it over here. Save this. And that's it. So now go to package.json file. Yeah, you have the server. Okay, good. So just run the server now.
This red color, am I missing something? Don't red color something.
No, everything is correct over here. Don't do anything.
Please tell the error db.json file.
Close this, stop this again and start it again. Let's see. Okay, so stop this and start it again. Okay, so go back to the code. Maybe there is something at the end. Go to the JSON file. Scroll to the right. At the last, yeah, there is a semicolon at the last. Remove that. Now run the save.
Okay, so I'll check it out. I'm not sure.
Just open the terminal. Open the PowerShell. Open PowerShell, the command prompt which you have opened. Not over here. Sec, you already have a terminal which is running the npm dev server. Yeah, so restart the API again. Okay, so this is your API URL. See, okay, wait, don't rush, wait. See, this is the API URL, which is localhost 3000/products. Copy this. Go to your browser. Run this. Okay, these are all the products. Okay, wait. Now, okay, go back. Don't rush. Be slow. It's fine. It's fine to be slow. Right after products, write /1 in your browser only. Okay, why? Don't go to the code. Just in your browser only. After products, write /1. Okay, this is your one single product. Okay, so when you make a API call, first you have to make a API call to the products. When you go to the product detail page, then you have to make a API call for the products detail page like this.
Okay. Now, how can I do the same db.json for create one? So as it is get one, we directly copied here. So when I'm creating login form or registration form, how will it come and sit here? So I need to create. So if you see here,
So for the
resource with products is created.
So, yeah. So for the create one, you have to go through the video which we have done in the last session, or I can give you the details. So it's not easy that I can do it in 2 minutes. So just follow the documentation on the plugin. It has very clear documentation that how it has to be done. Okay, so read this out. I will give you the documentation for this. Okay, so read this documentation. It will tell you that how the login flow will work. Okay. Got the link?
That's it. And I mean, I asked initially, so I just learned about @ input and @ output. But in the in the presentation, I see content child, content children, view child, view children, and in structural components also. I'm not sure on scroll bar component. I mean, is it normal or custom component, or is it something which is inbuilt, the scroll bar component and the search bar component? We created navbar component, but I'm not sure on navbar components for courses.
Okay, so where were you checking this?
In the EduRec only, we have for each module, we have the presentation, right? So
Yeah.
there, I'm verifying it.
Which one, which module was it?
Oh, module, I didn't remember. Maybe I can, it is kind of structural components, right? So it might be after. Yes, in this module.
Okay. So are you referring to the demo code?
No, this presentation.
Okay, let me see. One second, I'm not checking your screen. I was on something else. Yeah.
I'm also trying to pick that correct picture. Maybe from tomorrow I'll try to write the page name also. See, these components here I verified. We covered input, output was pending, but I'm not sure on these two. That is one thing. And the second thing is, this is about components. Maybe that I covered in structural. See, this is scroll bar component.
So this is, you have to create them. So, okay. So see, it says scroll bar component is our gallery component. It is just how you name your components.
Oh, okay.
So it's not that
so
there
this
is something.
We added as footer, right?
We added this as gallery. So if you go to the home page, there is a gallery component in it.
Yes, yes.
So it's up to you what you want to name them. It's not there is a rule that it has to be this. You can call your component ABC, XYZ, whatever you love to write the name for them, you can write that. So this is just a standard that, okay, use this way. Otherwise, whatever you like, you can write.
Got it.
Okay, for the decorators for the view child and content child, we'll do that in the last. We'll see what we have left, and
the
we'll check that.
pure and impure pipes I verified.
Yeah, this is, I know this is left. This is, I know, I will cover that tomorrow, because we have another last session, which is just for covering up the topics which we have left and have any questions around.
Sure.
So it's fine, we can cover these up.
That's
okay.
it.
So I will wrap up the session. Let's meet tomorrow then.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining. Let's meet tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Good night.
Good night.